Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Playing World of Tanks. I'm AJ, and today we'll be doing something different. Today we'll be actually looking at a tank that is not widely available and was given away as a reward tank for the recent campaign, which is the IS5. Now, if you're interested in the camouflage and these inscriptions, these were actually reward as well, so it's not something that has just appeared in the shop in World of Tanks. So if you were in the campaign, you probably have these lying around. If this tank was given away for free, if not, then I don't think so that it's available to be sold on any other tank. Now, what is the IS5? The IS5 is actually the prototype for the IS8, which eventually became a heavy tank which served with the Soviet forces and their armored brigades. It was also called the T-10, which is the alternative designation for the IS-8, and in that it shares a lot of similarities with the IS-8s and the IS-3, in particular the IS-3 because it's a tier 8 medium, tier 8 heavy tank. This is a tier 8 heavy tank, and essentially these both are fairly close to one another as far as armor and some of the other stats are concerned. So when we'll compare the tank, we'll actually compare it directly with the IS-3 itself. So the IS-5 gets a lot of things from both of the tanks, the IS-8 and the IS-3. From the IS-3's perspective, it gets some of the pike nose, which is on the IS-8 as well. The pike nose on this is very similar to the IS-8's armor. And if you pull up all the stats for all these vehicles, vehicle details, you'll be able to see how closely related they are. If you go to the tech tree, since I have unlocked the IS-8, I just don't own it yet. Actually, I've ground through the IS-8 towards the IS-7, so I had to sell this tank after I was done because I didn't think I would keep it. So if you look at all three tanks, you'll see a lot of similarities between them. The engine is identical at 700 horsepower in all of them. Top speed, the IS-8 is 50, which is the best, followed by the IS-5 and the IS-3, but don't let this fool you. We'll come to that in a second. The hull armor on this thing is actually similar to the IS-8 in that regard. Side armor is actually way better than on all of the tanks at 120 compared to the 90 at the IS-3. Turret is actually the copy of what the IS-8 gets. It's a 201mm at the front, and it's fairly hard to pen. It's not as easy as this armor value makes it out to be. Shell penetration is where the IS-8 sort of like just takes it away. With its top gun, I think it has 254 standard penetration on its shell, whereas the IS-5 and the IS-3 get 224 and 221 respectively. In this category, the IS-5 is actually the worst. Rate of fire is behind the IS-8, but it's actually better than the IS-3. And in that sense, the view range is, I don't know why, but its view range is 10 meters more than the IS-3. I guess I'll take it. And the signal range is pretty bad on this tank, only at 440 meters, which becomes an issue at some point. We'll go into the armor in slightly more detail, but you have one thing that's just from looking at the armor value you should note is it's basically an IS-8 at tier 8 with the IS-3's gun. The side armor on this thing is kind of insane, so you don't want to actually try to pen it. If it's trying to side scrape, you just want to just let it be and just continue on doing something else. So if we go into the tank inspector, we'll see that the IS-5 is represented here quite ably. Now, if you look at the armor values for this thing, the lower plate is your weak spot at 180 degrees. And 180 millimeters. And even for some of the tier 7s and tier 6s, this would not be an easy pen on this thing. If we jump over onto the main hull, you're gonna see the upper plates fairly respectable. The more closer to the edges you get, the more harder it is to pen. The inside remains the easiest part to pen on this thing. And in the front, if you like try to aim for the driver's hatch, it's just gonna ricochet off as well. So if you are facing this tank frontally, if you don't have 200 millimeters of penetration at the very least, this is going to be a nightmare of a tank to pen for you. In that sense, it can very easily bully 175 millimeter penetration guns that a lot of Russian tanks get at tier 7. So that being said, let's look at the turret. The turret on this thing is actually quite deceptive. You think, if you look at the value, it's only 201, but it's actually, the further away you go from the center, it's gonna start increasing quite exponentially as we go further and further away. If you hit on the outside, you just gonna ricochet off just completely. Over here, you might have a chance at penning this thing, but even that is not a guarantee, to be really honest. So this is one of the things that you want to keep in mind. If you face hug this tank in a T-32 or any of the other American tanks, this is actually a weak spot on the driver's hatch. You can actually pen it fairly easily, and you'll do damage to it. The roof is actually only 30 millimeters thick, so if you have a 90 millimeter gun, you can just pen it at almost any angle. Even if you see it just slightly, you can just pen it right there. So again, commander's hatch, obvious weak spots. Side armor on this thing is quite insane. Yeah, so yep. Side armor, if this thing is side scripting in front of you, best bet is just to go do something else. I haven't done reverse side scripting. Reverse side scripting is that you put your behind like to a wall and then you reverse out like this, and that seems to be pretty good tactic as well for this thing. So that's the IS5 in a nutshell. Now, if we look at the soft stats for this thing, let me just pull it up. A couple of things, and I'm comparing it to the IS3, which is its closest, I would say, comparison in the entire tech trees. Accuracy is far worse on this thing at 0.44 compared to 0.38, and I will show you a clip of how bad the accuracy can be on this thing. Penetration is just slightly worse at 224. One thing you want to keep in mind is do not accuse people of gold spamming, because it gets APCR as standard ammunition instead of like the AP round that the IS3 gets. In that sense, it can be easier to hit something that's at a distance, but the accuracy just makes it almost impossible to hit something pretty bad. The aim time is what compensates for the lack of accuracy at 3.0 versus the 3.2 that the IS3 gets. And yeah, everything after that, the soft stats on aiming and turret traverse are all bad. The elevation depression is similar at the elevation is similar at 5 degrees. The depression is worse on this tank as well. So what do you learn about the IS5 is that it doesn't snapshot nearly as well as the IS3, and that is saying something, since the IS3 doesn't even is not that great at snapshotting sometimes. Specific power to weight ratio is identical. Its forward speed is better, reverse speed is worse. Hard terrain resistance is very, very bad compared to the IS3, and medium and soft not so much. So essentially, if you look at these stats, what the tank would kind of like have you think is that you want to brawl up front. You want to be in the front lines most of the time, and that is possible if you're doing something. If you're the top tier heavy tank, it's very easy to bully other tanks around. Against tiers 9s and tier 10s, not so much. You want to be the support tank in that case, which goes without saying. So with that being said, let's jump into a game and see how this thing performs. Now this next game is probably the best game I've had in the IS5 so far. It's on Tundra, and the team is basically composed of mostly tier 8s, and There's two tier 9s on either side, but other than that, they will probably not have much of a difference on the outcome of the game where I'm fighting. So basically, I'll be fighting mostly tier 8s on this side and a couple of tier 7s. So in Tundra, you would like to control the hill from either side, just because the hill sort of like gives you vantage points in both of your caps. So if you have to reset, you can do it from here. If you have to snipe people on the enemy side, you can do it from here as well. I managed to snapshot the Panther, who unfortunately was not fast enough to climb up the hill. Now we move forward and see if we can dissuade the rest of the enemy team to sort of like leave this flank alone. The T-37 thinks he's a medium tank, but he really isn't. He's a light tank. He gets taken out for it. I prioritize at this point to kill the IS-3 just because the IS-3 has the more dangerous gun and it can go hull down and be pain in the ass relatively easily. So IS-3 was probably my target of choice at this point. I know the Pershing doesn't really have the sort of like the penetration on his gun to pen my side armor. Actually, a lot of things don't have the amount of penetration. And here's where sort of like accuracy comes into play. And I had the Pershing more or less half in my circle, but it didn't even actually come close. We both managed to bounce each other. The IS-3 bounces me, I bounced the IS-3 as well. And now we're just waiting. And IS-2 moves into a position where he takes 2 shots from both me and the T-34. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna push forward and sort of take out the rest of the enemies, as most of them were retreating around the corner, which gives us a much better angle to finish them off. Now over here, I take out the Pershing, or actually that was what my intention was, to take out the Pershing. At this point I was so locked into like taking out the Pershing that I refused to notice the Yak Tiger in the background. And Pershing tries to put a shot in somebody else, but I reload just fast enough to take him out. T-20 is our next target here, because he's the most easily exposed tank, and taking out another gun is what I want to do right now. I try to come across and put a shot in the M103, but I see the IS-2 is on low health. I'd rather take out another gun at this point from the game, and I try to see if I can bait the M103 to firing a more well armored place on my tank, but he doesn't. And this was just hopeful. Maybe I pen him, maybe I don't. The M103 very cheekily says hello, and you know, not realizing that there's tanks behind him. I managed to pen the top of his tank, as I couldn't really aim at his lower plate. I know the Yak Tiger is to my left side, so I move forward to get away from his gun, and my teammates take him out for me. So this is one of the clips that I wanted to show you. What do I think about the IS-5? IS-5 is a really great tank for what it does, which is grind credits. Is it overpowered? I think not. I just think since it's not as widely available and most of the people who actually own it know what they're doing, its reputation is going to be solidified as the overpowered tank at tier 8. But essentially it's a IS-3 with worse gun handling stats. Some of them are better, arguably, but most of them aren't. So it's essentially an IS-3 that makes money for you. So if this was on sale, you know, sure, get it, but you know, I don't think you're gonna, find it as overpowered as people make it out to be. Now the next clip, I'm just gonna leave it, and you can just watch like how many shells that I try to put to this T-62A at a distance, and I just do not manage to pen him. Now you have to keep in mind the T-62A doesn't really have armor. The only place you can actually bounce anything is the turret. So if I hit him anywhere else, it should have killed him, or at least still did damage. So just watch, and you'll be mortified at range how bad the accuracy is. Again, I bounced the T-62 again. M41 disappears. I know it can be anywhere. His traverse speed is so good. He can change directions and I would not be able to know. So I see the Foch moving up, and I know that there's two tier 10s facing us. The T-62A is behind us, and so at this point things were not looking so great. I needed to take out the Foch or the T-57 to give my T-110E5 any chance of surviving, because I know they were going to just go for him. I managed to pen the side of the Foch. Foch side is pretty poorly armored. You can overmatch it with just about almost any gun in the game. Now the T-62A is firing at range, and since the side armor of this thing is so well armored, I actually didn't think they would be firing to my side. I thought they were firing at my rear, but they're actually just firing at my side. I paired the ammo rack. See the T-62 again, and that was not even close. So yeah, Russian accuracy sometimes is pretty bad. Now again, the waiting game begins. I fired a shot blind. That actually didn't hit him as well, just because when he reappears, he actually takes a shot from the 268. That reduces him to 1 shot of damage. So we're just waiting again, just buying our time. Again, another rounds. And yeah, I mean, now we'll actually kill him, and you know, I finally got lucky with this one, and it goes where I wanted it to go. Now luckily for me, I was turned around and the T-57 tries to come around and take me out. I put myself on the other side of the rock, hoping that the Foch isn't looking, and I'm lucky in that the Foch actually went forward against the T-110E5. I tried to snapshot the E5, but it seems like it didn't work. And I bait 1 shot from the E5. I move forward, put 1 into him, take 1 at the same time, but for me it's a better exchange just because the E5 is... The E5, oh sorry, not the E5, the 57, the T-57 does about the same amount of damage, but the only difference being between us is that he has lower health and I'm a tier 8, so if he exchanges health with the tier 8, that's a poor damage that he's done. And over here I managed to take out the Foch and save our E5 buddy, and I'm gonna go forward, and the E5 is gonna take out the T-57. Again, so hopefully you guys enjoy these videos. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode of Playing World of Tanks.